Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at why Game Week 13 is the best time to take a hit ahead of the run-in to the World Cup. First of all, to timestamp this, I am recording before the finish of Game Week 12. I'm recording on Thursday. So the Fulham vs Aston Villa and Leicester vs Leeds matches have not yet been played, but we can still talk about most of the decisions as most of the teams have already played their Game Week 12 fixtures. So, Man City. Man City are one of the two best attacking teams in the league, and they are the only team out of all 20 Premier League clubs who have had a full week's rest this week. So both Man City and Arsenal didn't have a game in Game Week 12. However, Arsenal do play tomorrow on Friday in the Europa fixture, whereas Man City has had the full week off. Now, uh, looking backwards at Game Week 12 at Man City's opponent for Game Week 13, Brighton looked actually quite tired at parts of the match, especially in the later parts of the match against Nottingham Forest in Game Week 12. And they only have 2 days rest before they actually have to go and play Man City. So Man City with the full week off, Brighton already looking a bit tired midweek with not a serious amount of squad depth in their team and already looking tired, could mean pretty good attacking returns for the Man City outfit. Now, I'm going to assume pretty much everyone out there has already got Haaland in their teams, and a very large percentage of you will also have Cancelo. And so what we're looking at here is the third slot for Man City, who I think is actually an essential differential for our teams for the remaining 4 game weeks of the season. And that player is Phil Foden. Now, Foden looks like the most explosive attacker from midfield in Man City. KDB is kind of comparable, although he is not at all in the same price bracket as Foden. But Foden looks to be shooting a lot more in the recent matches, more than KDB. And also looks to be in way more dangerous shooting positions. He's quite often playing out on the left and coming in onto his right foot and taking quite a lot of shots inside the box. And he's been finishing them too. Now, the other thing to be noted here is De Zerbi has a very close relationship with Pep. So when De Zerbi was actually offered the managerial position at Brighton, he confided in Pep and actually talked to Pep a lot about whether or not he should take that role. And so, as you can see, they have quite a tight relationship, given that came out in a press conference. De Zerbi stated that in one of the interviews that he had, that Pep had actually even offered to help him with any match throughout the Premier League season, apart from, of course, the game where they play each other. And so, given that tight relationship, and Pep is actually helping De Zerbi in these other matches, you can see that De Zerbi is quite captivated by Pep's style of play, which is quite an open and expansive style of football. And we have seen Brighton play this way in the matches where De Zerbi has been in charge. And so I'm actually expecting this to be quite an open game. Although Brighton will be, a bit fatigued after having played a game midweek after 3 days rest and then another game after 2 days rest, I don't see De Zerbi changing his overall philosophy too much for this game, and so I think we'll see quite an open game, and I think Man City are actually going to punish Brighton if they do stick to this. I would be quite surprised if De Zerbi changes his style. It'd be in it would be a weird time to choose to change it all up against Pep, considering he is working towards playing a system that is reflective of Pep's style. And given that they're close mates, it would be even more of a reason to stick to the style and see if you can outplay Pep at his own game. If it was one of my mates standing on the other side of the pitch, I'd be I'd be going all out to try and get one up on him, that's for sure. Now, Foden is only owned by 19.8% of players in the game. That's 80% of all players out there that do not have Foden in their teams. Now that makes him a very strong differential as one that could come in and absolutely haul in this one particular game week. Now, Man City's final four fixtures for the run into the World Cup are really tasty, but I would put this Brighton fixture even higher and above those other three fixtures just because of what's happened. The full rest for City, Brighton already looking tired, and the fact that we are going to see quite an open and expensive play. I think Foden is an essential differential to bring in if you are looking to climb the ranks this week. And he is at the top of my list of players to bring in. Now, Arsenal was the other team that had a break in game week 12. They are also the second best or potentially top or first top attacking team in the Premier League. And I currently don't own Martinelli, who is owned by a lot of the competition. Now, Martinelli has unfortunately been killing my rank week on week. It has been quite painful to watch, and given that Arsenal have a great run of attacking fixtures in the final four fixtures before the World Cup, I do need to prioritise getting Martinelli in. Now, if you do have a look at the final four fixtures, it's the first two fixtures that are the real plum fixtures for Arsenal. And so Martinelli should be way up my list in order to get in this week as well, because he could go mental this game week and further punish my rank for not jumping on him. And so I have got situation where I had to use both free transfers in game week 12 to deal with James being out for an extended period of time, and Madison picking up his fifth yellow card to earn him a 1 week suspension in game week 12. So I am sitting in game week 13 with only one free transfer. Now, Foden and Martinelli warrant the hit, I think. There's a few reasons for that. The haul ability or the high haul potential for both Foden and Martinelli is quite high for this one particular game week. This is where we start looking at upside chasing, right? So spending 4 points to jump on a player that has high haul ability for one particular game week is known as upside chasing. You typically want to do this if you're going to bring in a new captain for the week to absolutely exploit or maximize the potential for these players to gain you massive ranks in one particular game week. And there's something that people out there should seriously consider. Now, if you already have Martinelli in your team, and no other issues to deal with, Foden should be a priority target for you guys to bring in. But if you do already have Martinelli in your teams, Saka is also a really good buy this game week. He's nailed on pens, looks to have worked his way into more attacking positions over the last couple of game weeks. and could be another really key differential to bring into your squads if you do not already have Martinelli, and of course if you do not already have Saka. Now, Martinelli is owned by 4.5 million players out there, and so the rank gains from buying Martinelli is not really there. You're probably not going to get a lot of rank increase by bringing this player in if he does haul. However, if you do not own him and do not bring him in and he does haul, the rank loss is potentially quite extreme, and so he needs to be a priority target to bring in for my particular team. Any of you out there that are also looking at the likes of Jesus up front, he is another really good option in the Arsenal outfit. He is very attacking, as we've all seen. He is working his magic in the box with very little space and getting a lot of shots off and getting them off on target and scoring a few. He is also a really good assister. He does look for teammates in the box, so his routes to points are multiplied with both assists and goals. However, he is on the suspension tightrope. Jesus is currently on 4 yellow cards, and so if you are looking to bring him in for the last 4 game weeks, if he does pick up 1 yellow in these 4 games, he is going to miss 25% of the remaining fixtures. He'll miss 1 whole 90 minutes, which could absolutely chuck a spanner in the works for those of you out there that were not aware of that. And so you have to be very cautious about whether or not your bench is strong enough in order to consider bringing Jesus in this week or in the final 4 game weeks leading up until the World Cup. Now, there's actually some other relatively well-owned players out there that are also very close to domestic suspension. 2.6 million players out there have Tony in their teams, and he is also on 4 yellow cards. He survived getting through the Chelsea fixture without picking up another yellow card, which I am super happy about because that would have been an even bigger headache to deal with this week. But he could pick up his 5th yellow card in these remaining 4 game weeks. And so there is the potential that I'm going to have to deal with that with one of my free transfers in the final 4 game weeks leading up until the World Cup. And so for my particular team, this kind of reinforces the need for me to take this hit this week to bring in both Foden and Martinelli. If I delay this week and push it out until game week 14 and Tony picks up his yellow card in game week 13, I'll be looking at taking another hit to deal with Tony and to bring in either Foden or Martinelli, whoever that I decided not to bring in this week, which means they only have 3 game weeks to pay back that -4, and one of those 2 players misses out on the best attacking fixture this game week. And so Tony's yellow cards is basically not forcing my hand, but making the -4 play even that more viable an option this week. To add headaches into the mix for my particular team, I brought in Fabian Schär this game week, which paid off immediately. My ride or die strategy to go all in on the Newcastle defence paid off immediately. They kept their clean sheet against Everton, so I got a triple clean sheet swipe from Newcastle. And Nico Williams miraculously played 90 minutes and also kept a clean sheet. So all 4 of my defenders come away with clean sheet points this week. So I'm super happy about that. But as I did warn, Fabian Schär was on 3 yellow cards leading into game week 12 and managed to pick up his 4th yellow in the game week. And so I now have 2 players in my team walking the suspension tightrope. Again, further reinforcing that if I am trying to delay hits, I'm also playing with a bit of fire, because if either Fabian Schär or Tony pick up a yellow card in the next the next 3 game weeks, because it doesn't really matter if he picks up a yellow card in game week 16, to be fair, because we just deal with that with the team refresh across the break in the World Cup. But there's 3 sets of fixtures where 2 of my players could pick up 1 yellow card to earn a 1-week suspension, and that is not ideal. And so I will be I will definitely be taking a -4 this week to bring in 2 players that could absolutely haul this game week. Now, there are some other less owned players out there that are also sitting on 4 yellow cards. I've only picked out the ones that are probably most likely in teams out there. So as I mentioned, Jesus is on 4 yellows. He's owned still by 59.8% of teams out there. So 60% of all players own Jesus. And I am seriously hoping that he picks up a yellow card and gives other FPL managers out there a headache to deal with, which will either burn a free transfer for a lot of players out there. They will be forced into making a forward trade, or they will have to take a hit in one of the last 3 game weeks of the season, which will, if managers out there haven't planned for it, will take away one of their free transfers in order to gain the ranks over this run into the World Cup. Now, from the same team in Arsenal, Saliba, excuse me, is also owned by 29.1% of all managers out there. So 30% of all managers own Saliba, and he is also on 4 yellow cards, which could also have the same issues where he could be burning 1 free transfer or invoking a hit in a lot of teams out there. And to travel a little bit down the list, we've got Dallo at Man United on 4 yellows. He's only owned by 8.7% of FPL managers. McAllister at Brighton is on 4 yellows, the penalty taker, but he's only owned by 6.6%, so probably not too much of an issue out there. And Bruno Fernandes, who actually scored this game week, is also sitting on 4 yellow cards, given that he didn't pick up one in the Tottenham fixture, but I'm pretty sure he's still sitting on 4 yellows. Now, Man City and Arsenal, as I've said, have got pretty good running to the World Cup, but also there's another team out there that may be getting overlooked a little bit, and that is Liverpool and Liverpool's attackers. Now, I sat down and had a pretty good look at the fixtures for Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool, and started doing some result predictions to figure out whether or not I'm, just wanting to jump on Foden and Martinelli, or if there is actually real haulability there by, kind of figuring out how many goals are going to go in these games, and how much likelihood there is that these players are going to be involved in some of these goals and, return points for our FPL teams. So, in game week 13, Man City versus Brighton, I see a 4-0 victory for Man City here. Brighton may sneak a goal in this game at some point, but I think Man City, with fresh legs playing against Brighton's very tired legs, with an open and expensive style of play, I think Man City could sink 2 quick goals in this game, and then it could end up being a blowout out to about 4, or even potentially 5 goals against Brighton at the weekend. And so Haaland is obviously going to be highly involved in that and should almost certainly be your captains this week, but you also want to maximize attacking options from this team if there are going to be 4 goals going in. Even if Haaland scores all 4 of them, he still needs to be assisted for those 4 goals. And so we want to be looking at other attackers out there that can be jumping in on those assists, or even chipping in with a goal if Haaland ends up getting a hat-trick. And I think 4-0 is a pretty good prediction for what's going to go on at Brighton. Now, Arsenal actually travel away to Southampton. Like I said, Arsenal haven't had a full break. They are playing tomorrow in Europa. And we will have to keep a close eye on the team sheet there to see how strong an 11 Arteta puts out. That would be just to reinforce your decision of who you bring in for Arsenal. But I see Arsenal probably going away to Southampton and winning about 3-0 at Southampton's home ground. And so that kind of reinforces the fact that Martinelli, Jesus, and Saka look like they could each pick up a goal and an assist in this match and come away with double-figure return. And finally, Liverpool are away to Nottingham Forest. Now, having watched the Nottingham Forest game where they miraculously kept a clean sheet, they look terrible. I think having like 21 new acquisitions to the team is just becoming quite difficult for that team to gel together. And I think Liverpool are going to run absolute riot over them at the weekend. I'm predicting a 4-0 victory here for Liverpool away to Nottingham Forest. And so Salah becomes a very a very good premium asset to consider very strongly for your teams out there. Nunez and Firmino should also be obviously in and amongst the mix, but we'll discuss a little bit more about Liverpool after the remaining result predictions. So after game week 13, Man City go away to Leicester. I've got that down as a 4-0 victory for Man City, given how terrible Leicester have been in defence. They then have Fulham at home. I see that as about a 3-0 victory to Man City. And then to round off game week 16, they have Brentford at home. So 3 home fixtures in the next 4 against Brighton, Fulham and Brentford, and 1 away fixture to potentially one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Man City could score, well, I've got 4-0, 4-0, 3-0 and 3-0. So that's 8, 10, 11, 12, 15 goals that I see coming in the last 4 game weeks of the season. Now this just reinforces the need for me to get Foden into my team and get him in quickly. Arsenal, for their remaining 4, like I said, they play Southampton away in game week 13. They then host Nottingham Forest at home. I see that as a 3-0 or a 4-0 win to Arsenal. They then go away to Chelsea, and I've basically put this down as any prediction. This game could go any which way. I think Arsenal will probably nab the win, but this game I just cannot predict, so I'm not entirely sure what goes on here. But let's just say Arsenal come away with a goal or maybe 2 goals in this fixture. And then the final game of the season is Wolves away, and I see Arsenal probably winning that 2-0. Wolves aren't very good at scoring goals. They're about a 1-0 team with a lot of their shots coming from outside the box, hardly any shots coming from inside the box, and so I see a comfortable victory there. However, Wolves are a much more defensive unit than a lot of other Premier League teams, and so they will probably limit Arsenal to about a 2-0 or a 3-0 victory there. And so I see Arsenal scoring 3 goals, maybe 1 or 2 against Chelsea, and then 2 goals against Wolves. And so we're looking at 9 or 10 goals for the remaining 4 fixtures for Arsenal that will most likely be shared against those front 3 attacking assets. Finally, Liverpool, as I've said, are away to Nottingham Forest, and I see a 4-0 victory there. They then host Leeds at home. I think Liverpool will probably put 2 or 3 goals against Leeds at home. But I see Leeds probably scoring against Liverpool. Leeds are quite an attacking team, and they do get at teams, and they do have quite a bit of quality in their team up front. And so I do see them sneaking a goal in there somewhere. But I still see Liverpool coming away with 3 goals in this match. 2 to 3 goals is probably pretty fair estimate. They then go away to Tottenham, and again I've got this down as an any prediction result. This game could go any which way. It could be 0-0, it could be a scored draw, or it could go either way. So maybe Liverpool score a goal in this game, maybe not. Or maybe give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they get one. But they then host Southampton in game week 16, who have been defensively terrible. I see Liverpool winning that game quite comfortably as well, about a 3-0. And so 4-0, 3-1, a 3-0, that's 10 goals, and then whatever they can get against Tottenham, that's a lot of goals to come in the last 4 games before the World Cup. And so Salah should be a serious contender to bring in to a lot of teams out there. Now, Diaz and Jota are still injured, and so Salah, Firmino and Nunez are almost guaranteed to play every single game, with the points probably being split amongst them. Now, having watched the Liverpool game with Salah as captain, game week 12, for the second week in a row, Nunez does not lift his head. He doesn't look up for his teammates when he's in the box and takes shots when he should be scoring the ball to his teammates. It is uber frustrating to watch as a Salah owner, but if you are considering bringing Nunez into your team, he's a really good FPL asset because he shoots on sight and he has got a pretty wicked shot on him. He did score in the 1-0 victory. He also hit the post and forced a really good save, hitting a left-footed volley shot from outside the box, snapshot that struck really well. And so he is most likely going to get into the points across these final fixtures and should also be a strong contender for your FPL squads out there. However, my pick of the bunch is actually probably Firmino. I like him more as a player. He's more calm, he's more clinical, he assists his teammates, he actually has his head up and is looking for other players around him, and so instead of taking a low probability shot, he is more likely to set up one of his compatriots for an even higher likely shot if the opportunity should arise, which means his assist potential goes higher. So I would probably put Salah top of the list, Firmino a close second, and then Nunez probably a distant third, considering both Diaz and Jota are injured. Now, Salah was basically playing as striker against Man City. He played an outstanding game against the Blues. He could have easily had another goal if he sunk his first one-on-one. And like I said, if Nunez had squared the ball to him in that fixture, he had a super high probability one-on-one, as the keeper was way out of position if Nunez had have just squared the ball to him. And so he could have come away with 2 attacking returns in that game. He also looked quite dangerous against West Ham. However, it looked like he was actually pushed a lot wider, with Nunez and Firmino taking up the more central spots for larger parts of the match. They did do quite a bit of interchanging amongst them, and then when Nunez went off, Salah did play way more central for the remainder of the match. But he started out on the right midfield again. However, he looks like he's starting to learn that position a little bit more. He was getting a lot further forward, working the ball in and around the edge of the area and getting into the box on the right-hand side more frequently than he had in the earlier fixtures where he was playing in this position. And so, although it does detriment his routes to points a little bit, he still does play large parts of the match quite centrally up front and as striker, which I think is actually his best position in that 4-4-2 setup. And he's on penalties, so you want to try and get as many penalty takers into your squads as you can. Now, would I swap Kane for Salah, which would probably invoke a hit or to use up 2 free transfers? I probably wouldn't. Kane has been doing Kane things. He has been very consistent in scoring points. He looked amazing at parts in the match against Manchester United, even though Manchester United looked like they absolutely dominated Spurs in that game. But if you already have Kane in your team, I don't know if the 2 transfers is worth it for the last 4 games of the season. However, Son or KDB could be good shouts to switch across to Salah, as it's only going to be 1 transfer. And if you have KDB in your team, I'm assuming you probably already have Haaland and Cancelo. Getting KDB across to Salah in order to slot in Foden could be another -4 meta play for the last 4 game weeks of the season. Should be something that those of you out there that do have KDB should seriously consider switching him to Foden for instead. Now, I had a look at a wildcard in game week 13. I've already used my wildcard, and so this is not for my team. This is more to have a look at what all those managers out there that have been holding on to their wildcard are likely going to do in game week 13 for the last 4 game weeks of the season. Now, if you are sitting out there with a wildcard, you must be licking your lips at the moment at the run of fixtures and how differential a team you can make that looks incredibly strong in terms of points potential. Now, the best wildcard that I came up with was actually a Threemium. If I bring up this transfer planner on FPL.team for game week 13, this is the Threemium wildcard that I draft that I built. We have Pickford and net at home to Crystal Palace. Now, if I just pull up fixture ticker, that's the wrong one, from Fantasy Football Scout, and we put it to the last 4 game weeks of the season. Sort by difficulty. You'll see Everton is at the top of the list. Now, in order to fit in a Threemium, you're going to need to make sacrifices somewhere in your squads, and so you're almost certainly looking for a 4.5 million goalkeeper, which Pickford fits in quite nicely. And their fixtures run out Crystal Palace at home, Fulham away, Leicester at home, and Bournemouth away. Now, these are not all amazing defensive options for Everton, but they could sneak a clean sheet or 2 in that run of fixtures. I hold on to Trippier for the last 4 games of the season because he is just incredible value at the back. We still hold on to Cancelo as well. But Tomiyasu, down at 4.2 million and looking to be playing week on week at the moment, could be the golden nugget of a key differential that unlocks a Threemium for your wildcards. Chuck in Salah in midfield. We've already discussed his fixtures for the run out, and Foden as well with Martinelli. I mean, I've just talked a lot about these guys, so we won't go into that. And then you have Anthony Gordon also at Everton, down at 5.4 million. Now, these are really good attacking fixtures for Everton. I don't see them. Maybe they keep 2 clean sheets and 4 out of these 4 fixtures, but these are very good attacking fixtures. Crystal Palace concede a lot of shots in the box, as does Fulham. We know how terrible Leicester's defence has been, and Bournemouth are one of the whipping boys that we are all targeting out there as FPL managers. And so Gordon, having already served his 1 match suspension for 5 yellow cards, should play all 4 fixtures of the run into the World Cup, and could come away with some attacking returns, playing quite far forward in that Everton team. Obviously, we still have Haaland in there. He's going absolutely nowhere. And then you can slot in Kane up front for his run-in, which is also pretty tasty in terms of attacking possibilities. They have Newcastle at home this week, which could be a good attacking fixture for Kane. They do have injuries to both Kulusevski and Richarlison at the moment, and so there isn't a lot of rotation going on at Tottenham at the moment, and they do also have Champions League fixtures, so Kane could have some tired legs, potentially, in the game against Newcastle, so it might not be as good an attacking fixture for him as normal. But then they go away to Bournemouth, tricky fixture at home against Liverpool, but then a home fixture to Leeds in game week 16, in which Kane could do very well across that run-in to the World Cup. And then Scamacca up front for West Ham. He has been looking amazing in that West Ham team. His minutes have been managed a little bit. I don't think he's hitting the full 90 week on week, but he is looking really dangerous when he gets his ball at the feet. He's got this type of shot that has a very minimal backlift, but still manages to generate a really good amount of power out of that low swing backlift. And the reason I bring this point up is low backlift shots are incredibly hard for keepers to deal with because they don't get any indication that the shot is coming. By the time the backlift has happened, the shot's already away, and it's all about reaction saves at that point. And I think Scamacca will probably come away with a couple of attacking returns in his final 4 game weeks leading up until the World Cup. They have Bournemouth at home this week, which is a great attacking fixture. They're then away to Manchester United, which is not great. But then they have 2 home fixtures against 2 teams that love to concede shots in the box, in Crystal Palace and Leicester. Now, Scamacca is actually very high up my list in terms of forward options. I'm looking at Mitrovic, who's still, well, he hasn't played tomorrow, so we don't know exactly how he looks at the moment, but in his last game, he was not jumping for any balls. He's still nursing that injury. He did play the full 90 minutes, but he just was not jumping, and so it will be very interesting to see what he does tomorrow in that fixture, to see if his injury is fully healed or not. But if it is not, it could be a pretty good switch to go from Mitrovic to Scamacca, considering Fulham's remaining fixtures are not great after the next 2. They're away to Leeds, which is a really good attacking fixture. They're then at home to Everton, which is another pretty good attacking fixture. But then they go away to Man City and home to Manchester United for the final 2. And so Scamacca in for Mitrovic could be a very good play. Now, I also have Tony on 4 yellow cards. And so if Tony does pick up his 5th yellow and warrants a 1-week domestic suspension, I will probably sell Tony across to Scamacca, even though Brentford have Aston Villa away, Wolves at home, and Nottingham Forest away, which are 3 pretty good attacking fixtures. Apart from the Wolves one, as I said, Wolves are quite a defensive team, but it is at home for Brentford. But then the final game of the season is away to Man City, which is not great for Tony's potential output. And so Scamacca on a wild card could be a pretty awesome differential to bring in. He's only owned by 2.2% of all players out there. He's not on penalties, although he might be. Having just watched Jared Bowen earn a penalty against Liverpool, I was fist pump in the air. It was all looking good. Then he steps up and I'm like, don't go left. Don't go left, Bowen. Don't go left. You always shoot left on penalties, and Alisson knows this. Alisson is going to dive to his right, your left. You need to either go straight or right. What does Bowen do? He goes left. and he goes at very savable height and does not put anywhere near enough power behind the shot to have Alisson save his goal. So whether or not Bowen is still on penalties, I'm not sure. Could be switched across to someone else in the team, and maybe it does force to Skamaka, and that could boost his routes to points for the remaining 4 game weeks of the season. Now, to quickly cover off where we're at, we'll just do a quick game week 12 review, even though the game week is not completely done. I'm currently sitting on 39 points, with the average being at 30, but I do have Nico Williams 6 points coming in off the bench for Cancelo, so we're up to 45 total, with both Mitrovic and Andreas still to play in the fixtures tomorrow. Now on live FPL, I have managed to boost my rank by 369,000 points across the first 2 days of fixtures. Super unfortunate because I was already up 353,000 places before today's fixtures. And if Bowen had have sunk that penalty, the rank gains could have been quite a lot higher. Souček also missed an absolute sitter from Bowen's assist, which was even more frustrating after he had already missed the penalty at that point of the match. It just wasn't to be for the man that I brought in this week to replace Maddison. Kepa also, holy hell, he saved 2 point-blank headers from Tony. His reactions are insane. You would have any day banked on one of those 2 goals going in for Tony. So we were actually super unlucky there too, but all things considered, it's going pretty well. Zaha scored. Trossard, who I warned against people not to bring in for a 1 week punt or for a hit for this game week, only comes away with 3 points against Nottingham Forest. Salah as captain kept his clean sheet, so we get the 6 points instead of the 4. Trippier comes away with all 3 bonus in the clean sheet for Newcastle. Fabian Schär, as I said, got the clean sheet, but also picked up his 4th yellow card to earn him 5 points. Nick Pope just keeps the 6 points. Tony with 2, Bowen with 0, having missed the penalty, and that is all she wrote. So I'm looking at hopefully about a 300 to 400,000 rank increase when the final fixtures of game week 12 are all said and done. And looking forward to game week 13, I will be investing 4 of those points to bring in Martinelli and Foden, assuming that there are no injuries to these 2 players leading into game week 13. Well, that's the video for today, guys. If you did like this video, please do consider giving it a like. And if you are new around here, hit that big red subscribe button to be notified about more FPL content coming your way soon. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly. Cheers.